we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and welcome to the Administration, Finance, Recreation, Parks, Public Safety, and Public Works Committee meeting for November 12, 2019. The purpose of the committee meetings are for the city departments to pass along information to the city council and discuss initiatives listed on the published agenda. By ordinance, the committee consists of the mayor, members of the city council, and the city administrator. The ordinance mandates the city administrator as the chair of the committee meetings. By ordinance, the committee makes no formal decision on committee matters. Rather, items are voted to move to a mayor and council meeting for consideration and vote, or staff receives guidance from the committee regarding the matter. This is a public meeting, but not a public hearing. Therefore, while the meeting is open to the public, we do not take public comments or questions during the committee meetings. Public comments or questions are received at the regular city council meetings held at 7 p.m. in the city council chambers on the second and fourth Monday of each month. First item on today's agenda is the approval of the minutes for the Administration of Finance, Recreation, and Parks Committee meeting for October 15, 2019. Actually, as you were, the approval of the minutes for the Public Safety and Public Works Committee meeting for October 15, 2019. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Judy. Is there a second? Second by the mayor. Any further questions or comments? All in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Under Public Safety and Public Works Committee, item number 2, under Public Safety Police, consideration to approve a text amendment to Article 13.1, offenses involving public peace and order by adding Section 13.1.14, unmanned aircraft in the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances. Chief?
I think everybody's familiar with Captain Rappiff. He's going to present this item this evening.
So good evening. Over the last 2 years, with the continuing growing of unmanned aerial vehicles, we begin to see an issue from a public safety concern with our ability to control them. So over the last 2 years, the FAA has made numerous regulations on what people can and can't do when flying them. Unfortunately, with us not being part of the federal government, our ability to regulate some of those is very limited. Just this past year alone, we had several drones up at the 4th of July fireworks flying right over some of the inflatables and that kind of stuff that the kids are using, which creates a public safety concern. Again, out here at Live in Roswell, we had numerous times people literally flying within 15 feet above the crowd, straight down Canton Street, which caused concern on top of the possible terrorist threat that creates from our perspective. So essentially what we did, the FAA has pretty much made some rules to prevent us from limiting flight any more than the rules they already have in place. I met with our legal department, and what we essentially did is drafted an ordinance to essentially mirror the FAA regulations that are already in place, so that when we see these issues, we can immediately address them and prevent any unsafe conditions for our citizens or people visiting our city.
Thank you. The floor is open for questions.
I have a question. This is just a general question. I had a former neighbor that was constantly flying a drone over my yard and my house. Is that a safety issue, or what constitutes a safety issue? So people looking into your life is not a safety issue.
So from our perspective, what we're looking at is mainly large crowd events, just because these helicopters have rotators that spin at several thousand RPMs to keep the device in flight, and obviously crashing down into a crowd of people could create some pretty substantial damage. There are actually 2 different rules. There's commercial flight, which is what we're seeing typically at Alive in Roswell. There's specific rules for that. And there's also recreational flight, and there are completely different rules for that. So if they're taking off and landing from their private property, those are entirely different rules.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So, is there a licensing process, either federally or locally, for people that do this commercially? That, be it at Live in Roswell, they're hired by a restaurant to fly over a crowd to take a picture, or by the city itself, or is there a process to go through that this will allow skilled folks to fly these?
Yes, sir. So there's actually, the FAA already has regulations and everything set up for you to be able to get licensing and to get authorization. You can actually even get authorization to fly over crowds, but you have a certificate that you receive from the FAA. There are specific training mandates to show that you're capable and able to fly a drone in those conditions before they'll just grant you those permits. So again, since we're mirroring their regulations, it would allow us to make contact with that person, verify that they do have those proper credentials, and then if they do, they can continue, and if they don't, it gives us the ability to take the drone down out of the air.
Thank you.
I have another question. What prompted this? Did we have any incidences here in Roswell that you said, we really need to move this forward?
So what really got me is the drones that were flying at the 4th of July fireworks directly over the kids. Obviously, it garnered some concern for us. Internationally, there have been several incidents where drones have been used intentionally to cause damage to people and property. So our ability to regulate that and be able to make more than a consensual encounter with someone to address those issues is kind of what's really prompted that for us.
A couple more things in that line. In my prior job, we had a couple incidents. One where we had a major incident on the interstate where somebody was flying a drone over top of the accident scene, and we did not know what was there, if there was combustible material, that this could create a fire hazard for first responders, as well as we spent a lot of time with the Super Bowl security, and drones were an incredible issue. At the Super Bowl, we had a number of unlicensed drone operators that were flying within this restricted area. Prior to the FAA's arrival during Super Bowl week, we had a very difficult time regulating those drones and what we could do. Once the FAA arrived, it was much easier to locate and prosecute those individuals. We did have the basic of creating hazardous and offensive condition for flying over the crowd, but when the FAA got there, they were able to enforce this much stricter, and they were more familiar with what you talked about, which was the commercial drone applications. Us as laymen were not well aware of that at the point.
So what this ordinance is doing is saying if you're going to run your drone in the city of Roswell, you have to follow FAA regulations.
Correct.
Okay. And then in section D, it says that you can't do it at all on or to city of Roswell property.
That's correct. And that essentially mirrors the FAA rules. So the FAA rules already state that anytime you're launching from public or private property that doesn't belong to you, you already have to get permission from the property owner. So the same would.
So I have one last question about that, is the last sentence of D. It says unless it is authorized for commercial purposes. Is there any reason that you wouldn't have just stopped the sentence at unless it's authorized? And the reason I ask you that question is we do have some citizens who have a particular park that they go to and like to fly their drones in. And so if the city, if Rec and Parks, if the council authorized that, it would be commercial.
Right.
Something to think about.
So ultimately, I trust your judgment when it comes to the public safety. So if this is something you feel just gives you a more helpful tool, it's something I support. To Councilman Tiser's point, I actually think I prefer it without the saying for commercial purposes, because I do want to make sure we're creating really flexibility and the opportunity for when there's different uses and needs where it's maybe not commercial, but want to make sure we are permitting it for, and I'm sure there's a number of different reasons why the city would want to permit it, but at the same time, I don't want that to be reason to stop kind of giving you the tools for what you have concerns around.
Are the drones individually required to be registered anywhere by
They're required to be registered with the FAA. They actually get an
no
individual.
matter what size or use, even if it's just for recreational personal use?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct, and that's one of the things, they're not often registered. When you purchase a drone for recreational purposes, it will say in there, hey, register here, and you must affix whatever your call signs to the drone. Not many people are doing that.
Can we motion to approve with the changes?
Yeah, if you want to state what the changes are.
Just end in, sorry. Go ahead.
The only change would be in section D, following the words such as authorized, striking the words for commercial purposes.
That would be my motion.
Second.
I understand the motion. Motion second on the floor. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. And it's unanimous. Thanks, gents.
Thank you.
Moving on to Public Works, item number 3, consideration to amend the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances, Chapter 24, Utilities and Services, Section 24.2.5, subsection B. Mr. Skalsky.
Good afternoon. So this item is to reinstate a sentence in our ordinance that was inadvertently removed, basically by accident last January when we made some overall revisions. And it just adds the one line that says containers, including curbside recycling bins, shall be removed from the curb no later than the end of the day of collection. So that was just an inadvertent deletion that occurred during the last update, and we hope that you would support adding it back into our code.
Floor is open.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Judy. Is there a second?
I have a question. So who will enforce this? Or
It's enforced through code enforcement and have environmental code compliance. Occasionally, we get complaints and concerns from neighbors who say, my neighbor hasn't brought their garbage in or their recycling bins back from the curb. And so it's usually a warning and people just usually abide by it, but presently we do not have a means to enforce because it's not in the ordinance anymore.
okay, thank you.
Second.
Motion on the floor to approve, move forward, second by Councilmember Wilsey. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, please raise your hands. It's unanimous, thank you. Item number 4, consideration for the mayor and or city administrator to award a contract to Federal EC LLC, standby contractor for a 66-inch and 30-inch pipe lining and head wall shoring and repair project at the intersection of Trailmore Drive and Martin Road in the amount of $91,238.
So this project is a relatively standard replacement or refurbishment type project for a culvert. In this case, we looked at initially removing and replacing the pipe. However, there's a significant amount of sanitary sewer that conflicts with that work, so redoing this would impact the sanitary sewer. So Adam immediately recommended we look at lining it, which is going to be much less expensive and less disruptive. So we consulted with our standby contractors and received several bids. The lowest responsible bidder is Federal EC, so we'd recommend awarding a contract to them for the replacement of these pipes. Any questions? And I'll have Adam address them.
Floor is open.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Judy,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wilsey. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. It's unanimous, thank you. Item number 5, consideration for the mayor and or city administrator to award a contract to Waste Built for the purchase off state contract of 2 scout trucks in the amount of $205,932.42.
So in this case, and Nick Pizzello couldn't be here this evening, he's got some family issues that conflict tonight. But we had planned on adding to our residential fleet this year in the capital budget with one of our large residential collection vehicles. And as part of looking over the entire fleet, the question was whether 2 of our smaller compacting scout trucks would be more valuable, and Nick determined, along with his staff, that it would be. So we're bringing this amendment basically to allow us to get 2 of the smaller red compacting trucks instead of one of the large red compacting trucks, because they've proven to be much more versatile and help us get in and out of tight spaces in the city in the first 2 years that we've had them. So with that, this is also off a state contract, and I will clarify that as coming off a state contract. The actual name will probably be New Way / Waste Built. That's the formal way they're referred to in their quote. And that this contract's being accessed through Sourcewell, which is a purchase consortium, and we will clarify that in the language of the item when it comes to full council. That was pointed out by our procurement folks as we prepared this item. Any questions?
Floor is open.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Judy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tizer. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. It's unanimous. Thank you. Item number 6, consideration of a budget amendment to fund the completion of the transfer station design and bid phase services with Burns and McDonald standby engineer contractor in the amount of $68,000.
So the key point on this item is that Mayor and Council approved the original 60% design build budget of $175,000 at our July 8th, 2019 meeting. At that point, we had hoped to complete the project as a design build. However, our legal limitations on our standby contracts preclude us doing that. That contract only includes 60% design and then conversion to a design construct contract that we would have brought back to the city, mayor and council. So an additional $68,000 is required to complete 100% bid documents. So we'll be going with a traditional design, bid, construct process. And this will allow us to finish the design through the standby contractor that'll start it and then bid the contract for a competitive bid for construction. Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Judy,
Second.
seconded by the mayor. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. And it's unanimous. Thank you. Item number 7, discussion and update of the Water Utility Division.
So last but not least, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Boyd, who runs our Water Utility Division, to just give you a quick overview and update of what he's been doing and plans on doing a little bit over the last year, the next year. You all set to go, Chris?
Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to come and share with you what the water utility's been doing over the last year. For our overview, we'll be looking at our customer base, as well as plant operations, distribution operations. Did y'all hear me? Okay. Capital improvement projects, our regulatory compliance, and our new asset management work order system. So this slide shows all of our customer accounts by category. You can see that the two main ones I wanted to point out is our multifamily make up 0.7% of our account base. And then our commercial accounts make up 9.4% of our account base. When you look at the next slide, this is percentage of revenue. Multifamily bring in 20% of revenue for the fund. And then the commercials bring in 26.8. So almost half of all our revenue comes from our multifamily and commercial accounts, which are typically large meters. And then our residential accounts would make up 44% of our revenue. Why is this important? Well, our large meters are starting to come to their end of life, and we want to make sure that A, they're reading accurately, and if not, they need to be replaced because these are our cash registers, making sure that we bring in the revenue for the water that we produce and sell to our customers and account for every drop. This right here is really a cool graph indicating since 2006 our gallons per person per day was 122. Come all the way down to 2019, we're at 73 gallons per person per day. So we have really reduced the amount of water that every household is using per person per day. Why is that? Well, in 2006 to 2009, we had one of the longest droughts on record for Georgia. And a lot of people during this drought response change their habits on how they use water, using it more efficiently. We had our toilet rebate program in place in 2007, and people have been replacing their old fixtures, old toilets, which uses up about 20% of your household water. In 2011, we implemented our AMI, our automated metering infrastructure, and installed about 3,500 smart meters in the system. That graphic shows the iPearl meter, which meets our lead-free requirement. It's a plastic polymer meter, so there's no metal parts in it, which is great. 2015, we implemented our customer portal, so our customers can actually monitor their own usage, get an idea what their monthly bill is going to be as an estimate, and then also receive alerts to possible leaks, so they can go ahead and address them in a much faster fashion than if the utility were to reach out to them. Under our policy, the leak has to be constant for 72 hours. And then we'll either generate a letter to send out based on the gallons per hour, or we'll go to the house and notify the customer that they have a potential issue going on. With the Aquahawk customer portal, the customers can receive an alert within 16 hours of a leak taking place. So it's a lot faster response. And then in 2017 and 2019, EPD issued level 1 drought responses in response to the dry conditions. And of course, it was in December of 2017 they did it. And then in 2019, they just issued it on October 18th. So we are now currently in a level 1 drought response. The water plant has been working on upgrading its communications to its SCADA equipment or telemetry equipment out in the field. Why is this important? It's because our plant operators need to know what's going on in the system. What are our tank levels? Is there a huge demand? Do they need to increase water production? Is there a possible leak going out in the system? Our old telemetry equipment, it's getting really hard to find parts to make the repairs. It's old radio technology, and we're upgrading to cellular technology. Last year, we installed the new communication equipment at our Highway 9 valve site and at the water plant, since the water plant has to receive the transmissions or the data back to it to update into the SCADA. This year, and we recently just completed it, we upgraded our communication equipment at the Woodstock tank and our Hightower tank sites. And next year, we'll be hitting Community Circle and our well site. So this is a 4-year project costing approximately $27,000 a year. And we're thankful that you were able to fund this over the next 4 years for us to ensure that we're able to see what's going on out in the system. We're currently working on optimization, both in power and chemical. So this year, I want to say March of 2019, we installed variable speed drives on our raw water pumps. This gives us the ability to control the speed of the pumping from Big Creek, this is one of our highest power users, that and our high service pumps to pump out into the system, which already have variable speed drives on them. We didn't have it on the pumps for the raw water, so when we were turning those pumps on, they went from 0 to 100% immediately. Now we can control what percent the pumps are pumping at, whether it's 35%, 10%, or 89%, or 100%. So we have more flexibility and control on how we're pumping to fill the raw water tank and produce water. Recently, Dan had brought to you the Georgia Power real-time pricing contract. So what this gives us the ability to do is, and goes into reviewing our plant operations, is if we know what rate during what time of the day Georgia Power has set to bill us for power per kilowatt hour, we can better fine tune on when we're going to pump and produce water so that we can pump and produce at the best rate possible for us. And through the real-time pricing, we could honestly save approximately $30,000 a year. So that'll help reduce our costs. With the chemical optimization, we installed the tank aeration system in July of this year. It is up and going, and it has helped with the taste and odor and how we draft our tanks. So now we have more drought resiliency, keeping the tank full. We're doing jar testing to make sure that, not make sure, we're wanting to produce the optimal water quality that we can with the least amount of chemical. Because our chemicals cost money, so we want to make sure that we're hitting that sweet spot with how much chemicals we're using as far as the dosage and what our cost is overall. And then we've hired Brown and Caldwell to do a study for chemical optimization, just to look at different chemicals. Are we using the right kind, but are we using the right dosage per se? Can we fine tune that a lot better? For distribution, I know you've seen this slide before, but these are the different programs that we're required to maintain through the Environmental Protection Division. And we're on track. We're working on every single one of these programs. And the big thing is our meter replacement program. We're replacing 500 meters annually. And we're hoping to complete this fiscal year's 500 by the end of December. Distribution line break, so I've got us all the way down to September of 2019. And as you can see, our main breaks have gone down drastically over the years. And that's through capital improvement programs and leak detection and everything else that we're doing. We're finding that we have very little main breaks over the last couple of years, as opposed to 2006 or 2008, which is when we had a huge amount of breaks in our galvanized steel lines. To date, we've replaced 23% of all of our 2-inch galvanized steel lines since 2018, which is approximately 6,000 linear feet of pipe. We still have a lot more line to replace, and that's what we'll be focusing on over the next 5 years. Our galvanized line replacements that we've replaced so far, you can see on the list, Knoll Woods Court, Hunter Hill, Cedar Trace, Shadowwood, and the list goes on. Our next projects that are really going under contract right now is our Oxbow Road Realignment, which is a joint project with the Transportation Department with their road realignment of Oxbow Road. Clara Drive is currently out to bid, and we're hoping to have in construction by December. I'm actually looking after the first of the year, just because you don't want to start something before Christmas. And Willow Springs Drive is currently under design. Our next priorities for cul-de-sacs are going to be Lake Drive, Farm Trace, Roswell Hills Court, Ridgefield Court, and both ends of Ridgefield Drive. So our master plan progress and accomplishments. On the left side are our ongoing projects. These will never end. We're always going to look to optimize our water production. We're going to constantly look at replacing water lines and ensuring that we have the best material in place to reduce future leaks and moving forward. We're testing and replacing meters. In fact, going back to the multifamily and commercial customer accounts, any meter 3-inch and above, we're going to be testing on an annual basis to make sure that those meters are registering accurately, and if not, then we're going to look to either make repairs to the meters or replace the meters. And then we continue to maintain a high level of customer service. Items that we've completed and taken off of our list is we've acquired our CMMS, our asset management work order system. We've established financial sustainability in our water rates. And we recently certified our laboratory and got our permit in August of this year. So our laboratory is ready to go and test water and on our back T samples. Continued successes for distribution. We received our Water Distribution of Excellence Gold Award in 2018, and we are receiving it in 2019. So next month we're going to schedule to have GAWP come out and present the award to you all. Our average response time for calendar year 2019 to emergencies is 71 minutes. I know in an earlier meeting, it was shown at 250 minutes, and our response time is 2 hours, which is 120 minutes. In going back and looking at our emergency response times, I found that the arrival times that were put in by crews were prior to the time that the work order was created, which threw a curveball into the time frame. And then there were some work orders where they didn't have an arrival time or end time. So we had to go back and correct those, and when I reran the report, it came in at 71 minutes. So we're well within our 120-minute response time for emergencies. Also, we brought in Ashley Manor, which was a private subdivision and is now public. All the meters are been purchased by each of the homeowners, and it also created our first district metered area. So what we have been doing is actually, through our automated metering infrastructure, we've created a DMA group, or district metered area group, and we can compare the readings through the large meter to all the residential meters that are getting billed. And the large meters much more accurate than the smaller PD meters that are currently out there, or positive displacement meters that are currently out there for the residentials. And we can see the difference in water consumption through it. It also gives us the ability, if we're out there flushing hydrants, or someone else goes out and flushes a hydrant, we'll know immediately and how much water was used for that flushing. Or if there's theft, we'll be able to tell what the theft is and account for the theft. And that's important for our annual water loss audit that we have to provide to the state. We've got to account for every drop that we produce and put out into the system and where it went. For the plant, it received its Plant Gold Award in 2019. Our lab was inspected and recently certified by EPD. And we recently, in 2018, December 2018, went through our sanitary survey and passed. So we're doing very well as far as EPD is concerned. This is something I think will interest you all. So this is all of our Fulton County purchases since 2002. And as you can see, there is a huge drop in 2017 to how much we purchased from Fulton County. And I believe one of the things we had mentioned when the plant was brought to you all is to this body was that we would be able to reduce our purchases to less than 2% from Fulton County. We've achieved that. 2017 was 0.5%, 2018 was 0.7%, and 2019 through September 1st was 0.3%. So we're keeping our purchases from Fulton County to a minimum. 2015, when the old plant shut down, new plant was under construction, we spent $616,875 in Fulton County purchased water. In 2018, we spent just under $15,000. So we've definitely seen a lot of reduction there. Regulatory, we have the Environmental Protection Agency Safe Drinking Water Act. A couple items that are coming up from there that we'll be working on is the resiliency risk assessment and emergency planning. And EPA is also launching, or is supposed to launch this month, the new lead and copper rule. So we'll be evaluating it and what we as a utility will need to do to meet those regulations. The Environmental Protection Division is the state regulatory agency. As I mentioned earlier, they issued the Level 1A drought response in October, and we are also working with them to renew our permits, which are due in 2021. And then we have the Metro North Georgia Water Planning District, which represents the 15 counties of Metro Atlanta, and they have the water resources planning guide that we have to follow, which has several action items in it. In fact, I believe early next year, January, February timeframe, we're actually going to be audited by the district to make sure that we're meeting all of the requirements. So we're looking forward to that. Our work order and asset management system is called HyperWeb. It gives us the ability to track and schedule work in the field, provides me the ability to job cost projects and track inventory, which was really difficult in the past prior to this, especially the inventory tracking. I'm able to quickly run and see what our response time is to emergencies. Provides institutional knowledge for future managers or, 5, 10 years, why did we do something in the field? We can go back into this system and look. The other nice thing is the work orders we can tag to actual assets, whether it's the water lines, water meters, plant pumps. We're able to see a historical record on all work being performed on those assets in the field and have a history on them. I'm using it right now for project management for all of our water line projects, as well as for our plant projects. Effectiveness gives us the ability to run reports a lot quicker. I can do it within a couple of minutes as opposed to 2 to 3 hours to review and create a report for Dan or for you all. And preventive maintenance. It gives us the ability to track our preventive maintenance and schedule preventive maintenance on pumps, vehicles, all of our assets. Community circle repairs. I'm sure you all remember that line getting hit in June of 2018. We invoiced the Comcast contractor $95,000, in which the insurance carrier we negotiated down to $89,000. The insurance carrier waived the cost of the lost water that was billed on top of to get to that 95, and we agreed to the 89,000, which was paid in full this year. So we did get paid for that. And our work order system provided the necessary documentation on why it cost what it did. This is a nice screenshot of Big Creek and our intake shown in the background under the branch. I thought that was a great way to end. Any questions?
Chris, I think it's amazing that our gallons per person per day are down 40%. For the work you all have done, the work our citizens have done, that's pretty, I'm shocked by that. It's an amazing number.
If you hadn't brought that up, I was going to mention it.
Okay, well, you
right
can
up
just-
there with the best around the neighborhood, and the entire metro area has made great progress, but I think everybody in town would be happy with those numbers. We're extremely pleased with them.
So are we still offering the toilet rebates?
Yes. In fact, we also opened up our toilet rebate program to multifamilies. So multifamilies are able to take advantage of it.
Are you seeing a lot of that happening?
Yeah, we still get applications in. It's not as much as we first saw early on, but we are still getting applications in for the residential and the multifamily, which took off in 2015 when we took over managing the program. We had originally been partnering with the Atlanta Regional Commission on this program.
I'd just like to make one or two more comments, which is a lot of what you see here is just day-to-day, knocking it out, great work by the water utility, and it's added up over a decade, and it shows up in these figures. It all helps when we talk to EPD about our permits, and it shows up in the reputation that Chris and the water utility have among the rest of the water professionals, and why we're a good recruiting target for other utilities. But we appreciate what he does, and he's made my job tremendously, much, much easier.
So any update on accelerating the galvanized steel pipes replacement? Any update on that? Or?
We will do that as fast as we can afford to do it, and this year we actually have quite a bit of major projects that are going to take out some of those lines, particularly in the historic area around Oxbow Road. But it is really just a funding and a progression. And we've knocked out quite a bit, and the ones that we have not been, we have fewer known problematic lines, but we want to get rid of them all. It's just based on funding. And fortunately, this has been a good year for revenues, so hopefully next year's budget will be a little more aggressive on the capital side.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Jess. Nice job, Chris.
Thank you.
We're going to take a 5-minute break. Yeah.
And just check and make sure it's something you just plug in through my laptop.
Actually, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Probably have some help out there.
Yeah, okay. Just make sure. Okay. Do you know who'll be there? Yeah, just let me know if you're gonna be there too. Sunday.
I don't know exactly
Show
how
us
it's working.
around. Okay.
But it'll be,
Okay, we're going to move on to the Administration, Finance, Recreation, and Parks Committee meeting. The first item on that agenda is the approval of minutes for the Finance, Recreation, and Parks Committee meeting for October 15, 2019. Is there a motion?
Approved.
Is that Councilmember Tizer?
Yes, sir.
Motion approved by Councilmember Tizer,
Second.
second by Councilmember Judy. Any discussion or questions? All in favor, please raise your hands. Unanimous, thank you. Under Administration, number 2, consideration to approve placement of 2 memorial markers on the grounds of City Hall to honor members of the Armed Forces, Blue, and family members who lost loved ones serving our country, Gold. Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. This is an item that's come back on October the 15th. I was before you guys. We had this map, and we were talking about different locations for where the markers could be at, and it was kind of narrowed down to the location option number 2, which was sort of considered on the pathway between City Hall and going over towards the heart of Roswell Park and Canton Street. And then it was also brought forth by the person making the group making the request that they wanted it at or around the Faces of War Memorial. So we were asked to go back and try to put some mock-ups together that we could get an idea of what they look like. And our building ops folks got a hold of it and put together some really nice mock-ups that were the exact size of what the memorials would look like and colors. Don't worry about what the wording says, because those were just pictures we pulled out of somewhere that they recreated. So we went to the Faces of War Memorial, and the direction was to move them a little farther back. Originally, we started almost right behind it, which was way too close. Presented something that was just outside of the circle area by the landscape, which still put the markers well into the viewpoint of the memorial. So during the discussion that we had on the 15th, you asked to move them a little bit farther out. So this is kind of right, if you were standing in front of the landscape, these signs are right even with the very edge of the landscape, which goes around for the memorial. So there's still, these memorials would still kind of be associated with the Faces of War Memorial, but they're right on the very edge of where the landscape goes back. This particular photograph is one where it's fairly close to the memorial. This is a little bit farther away, so one sign is right here and one is right here. This is if you were standing up right behind City Hall, which would be down here towards the bottom. So you can see the signs are still associated with it, but they're far enough away that if you just wanted to sit and get the idea of the Faces of War Memorial itself, they kind of blended more with the background than they do with the memorial itself. The other location, then we can go back to these, was along the pathway. This is the pathway coming up from City Hall that turns and goes up to the corner, crosses over to Heart of Roswell Park and Canton Street. So we kind of diagonally put those across the walkway so you can get an idea of what those look at. This is the medium length away, the first bench and the intersection of the walkway, so you can kind of get an idea of where they would be at. And then from a far away distance, you really can't really discern them too well far away because they do blend in very nicely. You can see the one beside the Faces of War over here on this right side. You get a better idea of where it's at in relation to the landscape. So it's really not tied directly to the memorial, but at the same time, it's relative to the memorial there. So those were the 2 options that we were asked to bring back for you guys to take a look at what a mock-up would be. So we're just looking for direction. Ultimately, this is an application process. So if there was a motion today to move forward to the mayor and council agenda, it would be to approve the location and an installation. The installation would be based upon whether or not the application was actually approved by the state and the national committees. Councilmember G.
So first off, I'm glad Lifetime didn't grab building ops for set production, because those things were pretty good while they were doing the movie here. I thought those things were awesome and gave us a good feeling. I really believe that those moved out complement Faces of War Memorial, and I've talked to multiple people who agreed when it came to not taking away from the memorial. I think the signs kind of in the middle of the forest were kind of random, in my opinion, and I think that those there really kind of frame the memorial and allow people to walk around it, see it from all sides, and look at the signs as well on the side. So that would be my opinion on the placement of those.
So, yeah, I have a different opinion on that. So, for two reasons. One, having on the option number 3 location, this location will give another focal point to the face of the war and World War II. So we have 3 different focal points on the same park. And the second reason is I don't want to take any solemnity or protagonism to the face of the war memorial. So for those 2 reasons, my option will be location number 3.
So, Michael, you still there? Thank you. So I had originally, when I first saw this, a totally different opinion than I'm going to express today. And I think being able to actually see them life-size in the right color, that was a pretty amazing process y'all did. So thank you for that. I've had a chance to talk to the citizens who are looking to do this. And not coming from a military family, it's hard to imagine the whole process. What they have said to a person, and quite vehemently, is that the preferred place for them is the option on the sides at the memorial. Not that one, that one. That seems to be what that group is very much in favor of. And so that's a change in how I originally thought and what I originally thought. I originally thought also that, you know, the Vietnam veterans would find that to be something that would be unacceptable, but it's been just the opposite. So I'm good with that option.
Agree. I do like this option with having the markers with the memorial and in kind of a little memorial garden. I think if I had my preference, I would have them even just a little bit further away from the Faces of War Memorial, just so that you're standing in front of the monument, that you do get that sense of serenity and kind of one-on-one with it, if it was possible to go, even just a couple more feet, just, partly just because of the size of the markers themselves. But I think it's in the right vicinity. I like the feel of having this garden.
Is it possible to move a few feet away from the monument?
Sure, it's possible. We can, so my opinion is that the only concern I would have if it went too much farther is how far do we go before it's no longer associated with memorial. And the only reason I make that as a concern is they are their own memorials. So if we ever wanted to put something there and move these memorials, they're very difficult, if not nearly impossible to move. If they're associated with our Faces of War Memorial, if we ever wanted something to go there and we moved the Faces of War Memorial, these other 2 memorials, if they're related to the Faces of War, could move with it. So I don't know what that distance is of how far away that would be. That's more the concern. Can we move them a little bit more? That's up to y'all to decide that. This picture right here is if you're at the very back of this walkway where that one bench is that you can sit. So, Councilor Wills, as you see, when you're at that bench, you do kind of still have those in the view. Certainly as you move forward down the walkway, because we got them to the outside of the landscape, once you start getting a little bit in, of course, your peripheral vision will narrow it in some to where you can still get it. Could we move it out a little bit farther. I don't know if we could move it far enough out to get it out of the view while we're at the bench or not, that might start looking too far apart. I don't know. I mean, it's up to y'all, but I know what you're saying. How can we get them as far as we can without getting them too far? So I do understand what you're saying.
So the question would be then, how far can you go and still be associate just for a matter of moving in the future? Because really you don't want to associate with the already solemn monument we have there, so we don't.
Correct. And that's why when we started it, I had originally thought they wanted them kind of right behind it. That was just, to me, not acceptable at all. And we put them out about here, which was better, but that's that's kind of where we're at right now. And you saw in that one picture, it's right along the very edge of this landscape. You can kind of see we did get it right to the very edges of the landscape at this point.
I would agree with Councilmember Wilson. I think there's a scale issue. These are very large signs. Now, are they as large as the Vietnam Memorial? No. However, I think that if they're moved, if we can just move them out a couple feet more, it brings their scale down so they're not dwarfing the Vietnam Memorial. But I do like this the placement, but I would agree that if we could even move them out a couple feet in each direction, that would probably be helpful in reducing the scale discrepancy.
We can get them right outside. Right now, they're kind of, like I said, sort of even with the edge of the landscape, and we could put them a couple more feet just outside of that to get it to where the memorial Faces of War comes all the way around, and then they could be right outside, and we could certainly put that out there, and I think still have it close enough and dissociated that they would appreciate that.
I think that'd be helpful.
So we need a motion here.
I'd like to move it forward.
Then we have to define how many more feet we move it besides both of them.
I think the mayor suggested maybe 2 more feet out to get it outside of the landscape, each one.
Okay. So
And we'll see the final version at council, right?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so yeah, we motion to approve with moving them 2 or 3 feet
Okay.
to the outside of the memorial.
Second.
Motion on the floor, the second. Olivia, did you capture that?
Yes.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. It's unanimous, thank you. Item number 3 under administration, reappointment of the members of the East Roswell Economic Action Committee. If you recall, in June of 2018, the council adopted a resolution to create the East Roswell Economic Action Committee with a term of 1 year. Appointments were made, and the committee held its first meeting on February 2019. Subsequently, a charter was adopted by the committee, with all the members' terms expiring February 2020. So this, we're getting to know almost a year of this committee being appointed, and there's been a lot of work that's been done. We discussed this with the committee last Friday. There is interest in the committee wanting to continue this work, understanding that they need to get to a certain point and come and report to the council before the end of the year, before the end of the term. So if the committee is going to continue, we just need to discuss the terms and membership of the committee if the council wants that committee to continue. And I've asked the Chairman, Mr. Perry, to be here tonight in case council had any questions about the work of the committee, its makeup, membership, and any reports that are forthcoming. The floor is open.
How many members of the committee do you know that want to be reappointed? Does the whole committee want to be reappointed, or?
I asked that question Friday and just asked them to respond to me individually. I haven't received any responses yet, but I know there is interest from the committee members to be reappointed. Trent, did you have anything you wanted to add on that? Do you know?
I think, I haven't gotten feedback from all of them yet, but I think that there's a lot of dedication on the part of the committee members to this work, and they've been working very hard. We've had 7 working meetings, 2 administrative and organizational meetings in the beginning for February, March. We did our work plan in April, and we're about halfway through the work plan, which we expected to be farther along. And then we looked up, and all of a sudden, February is staring us in the face, and now we're I'm intending to have recommendations on the table to this body by the time this committee term expires. It probably would be a portion of what we could produce if we were able to do this longer and have the committee members involved. I'm not necessarily saying that that's the will of all the committee members to go beyond February. I just think that as we have read all the studies and we've dealt with all of the staff input, the consultants that we've been benefited from in terms of their presentations to us, having lived and worked on the east side for decades, most of us, there's a lot of work to do over there. And I think, to be honest with you, as a group of volunteer residents on the east side, as well as business managers and owners, I don't know that we really had as much of an appreciation for the details of the problems that I think we have on the east side. It's a legacy of issues, in my opinion. And I think that the longer these committed and dedicated volunteers work on that, the more clarity we're going to have on some of the issues that we really need to bring to bear. I mean, you all have a pretty clear idea of some of the issues, but I think we have a residential perspective that is unique to the east side for quite a number of years. And I personally value a great deal digging into these studies. I don't think there's any I haven't read. They're tedious, and we've done a lot of studies. I'm trying to look at how we need to make actionable some of those recommendations that we have had on the table for so many years, decades. And some of those recommendations we have felt weren't relevant anymore. A lot of cases I disagree wholeheartedly. And I enjoy dealing with some of these issues that I've seen as a resident over there for 33 years. And so too the other members of the committee do too. I mean, they are just overwhelmed sometimes with the magnitude of some of the quantification of these problems that we've identified through staff resources and presentations, and are just digging into all of these studies all the way back to 2003. So there's a lot of work, and we can produce, in my opinion, we can produce some significant recommendations in the spirit of the term that we've had, and it expires in February. And I think we can produce a lot more, and perhaps, and we've not been able to do this thus far, but we haven't been able to engage any in the community outreach areas, because of staff limitations. And with regard to public input, we've gone back and pulled up some of the 2017 Roswell Inc. and Community Relations Survey, and we've drilled down on its findings, although it wasn't finalized. The opinions of the residents are very clear in many cases, if you really read that stuff. And it's clear to the point of explosive in terms of some of the things that they define as major problems and priorities that they'd like to see addressed. And I'm not saying that I align with that. I'm just saying that the clarity with regard to some of the issues is stark. And I think that what we're trying to do from a volunteer residential standpoint is put that on paper from a residential and people that live on the east side standpoint. So anyway, it's open. I respect and appreciate that this body has created this committee, and I think that we've done a lot of good work, and we've surfaced a lot of important issues. But I'll leave it up to your recommendations or your judgment in terms of how far we continue. But we will have results on the table by the time we expire.
So based on what he just said, I would like to know who would like to be reappointed as well, because I think continuity to this would be huge in the process of what you're doing, rather than naming new folks. And so for me, that's a very important part of this as we move forward, because I think that what he just said has taken them this long to get to where they are. You throw a bunch of new folks in who haven't been doing, I think that it would be counterproductive. So I would like to see that, but I do support, giving you as much time as possible to come with a great product.
I think most of my committee will probably agree to stay on. I can't commit to that until we've gotten the feedback from them. But I would, because of their enthusiasm, their hard work, their dedication, I may have one person whose workload, based on his job, is significant enough that it's caused some concern, but we've worked around his schedule quite a bit. So anyway, I think most of them will stay on. I just can't guarantee that right now.
So, Mr. Perry, I just want to say I strongly support this being renewed, so I appreciate your service. I'm really glad the mayor had brought forward this idea for this committee, and I really appreciate all the work that you've started, and I definitely want to see it continue. And I do agree with Mr. Judy on, I think the continuity adds value and benefit. I'd say no matter what, I definitely want to make sure this is moving forward and definitely hopefully with as much continuity as possible.
Let me just thank you to begin with. The scope of this project is enormous. If we were able to solve this quickly, we would have solved it years ago. So I thank you. I thank the committee. You all are doing great work. This is one of the best committees I've ever seen functioning in the city of Roswell. And that's awesome because you all are doing a great deal of work. You are committed. You've got great folks on this committee. And the one thing that I would like to say is not only my preference would be to reappoint the existing committee. If there is someone that isn't willing or can't continue, we had a lot of really good, well-qualified people that were in the pool for that. So I think that finding a replacement, we can do that if we need to. And the other thing I would like to add is, let me just say this. This is a priority for me. I think it's a priority for all of us as electeds. And one of the things, we've talked a lot about our strategic plan and how does that play out and what direction does that give us. And my contention is, and I'll bake anyone a cake if I'm wrong, my contention is that when we do our strategic plan, right up there at the top, is going to be economic development. So I want to make sure that staff is providing you all the resources that you need to get this job done. And if you need an additional motion on that, I am more than happy to make that. Thank you.
I will share that positive feedback for the committee members because I'm sure they'll like to hear that.
So we don't need action tonight. This was kind of just to put it on your radar that this is coming. I can leave this on the next administration committee agenda. And if the pleasure of the council is to continue this committee, we probably need to revise that resolution or just adopt a new resolution. Because there's some specifications in the current resolution that wouldn't work for the next term.
I would just like to say I think this is extremely important work, and I really appreciate everything that you've done. I've talked to some of the members of the group, but I know they've really enjoyed, having a chance to get into the studies and seeing some of the things that can be done and some of the opportunities that we have. One thing, I would love to have a chance as soon as possible to sit down with a committee and kind of talk about some of the things that you're thinking and how we can go forward, and especially how we can engage the community in doing some of the problem solving based on, what you're seeing. So I look forward. I also thank you for the recommendations that you were able to make in support for the managed lanes and the additional bridges. So thank you very much.
Community connection is something I had.
Yes, exactly. And I think that is a huge
We just haven't had the
priority.
resources to bring in those stakeholders and the residents. Residents are full of opinions. There's no doubt about that.
And that goes back to staff support.
Right, right.
I would completely support any staff time that we need to do, because this is important. You guys are doing great work.
Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? So I'll reach back out to the members and gauge the interest, and I'll keep you all posted, and then we'll have this on the next committee agenda to continue the discussion. Thanks, Trey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to finance, item number 4, consideration to award contracts for on-call electrical services. Mr. Lucky.
This item is our citywide on-call electrical services contract is expiring in December. So our procurement staff went out for a bid to redo this contract. We received responses from 5 vendors. This is an invitation to bid, so once we've established that all the responses are responsive and responsible, then it does go to the low bidder. So in this case, based on the pricing that we have received and the fact that the vendors were responsive and responsible, we are recommending 2 awards. One for high voltage services to LMI Systems. And then in regards to low voltage services, we are recommending to award to 2 companies, LMI Systems and Paramount Network Services. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
So first of all, definitely looks like some great cost savings. So very impressive with I guess who I'll call the winner depending on this committee's vote. Question I have, so I think it's extremely clear for the high voltage. For the low voltage, just out of curiosity, I see the reasoning in the sense that, one has certain rates that are lower, the other one has certain rates that are lower. Is it because they were the 2 different ones and both low in their different ways, that's why you chose 2? Or did you choose 2 more of just because we're better off having 2 in case we need it? I just want to understand that part.
Yes, LMI, since they were already the low for the high voltage, and they were reasonably low for the low voltage, they were recommended for both. And then when you look at Paramount, the fact that it was pretty close to the pricing in terms of overall with LMI, we recommended both of those for award.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Councilmember Judy,
Second.
second by Councilmember Palermo. For the questions or discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. It's unanimous, thank you. Item number 5, consideration of fiscal year 2020 mid-year budget amendment. Mr. Luckett. Ms. Hora.
Thank you, Gary. Finally, we come to the best part of the meeting. And we have a good story to tell here with the numbers. So I'll just start, I guess. Good evening, members. So we're here to present the FY 2020 mid-year budget amendments, the requests that we've received from the departments. And typically, the process we follow is the departments submit their mid-year requests to us, and we review them. And the general criteria that we apply for mid-year consideration is the time constraint and any unanticipated expenditures that come up during after the annual budget process. So the staff reviews the available funding and the departmental proposals are discussed with the mayor. And then finally, we have the recommendations now being presented to the council. We'll start. So we'll start with the general fund requests. And first, the revenue recognition. So we have, we are recognizing $63,115 for 50% of the share that Alfreda is going to pay for the RAPSTIC expenses. I'll talk about that later on one of the slides. And then we are also recognizing additional insurance premium tax revenue of $225,135. So this has come in over what we had initially budgeted. And then we have the indirect cost revenue. So during the budget process, we had estimated the revenues to come in a little higher, but actually they will not be. So we are reducing that revenue by the $36,447. So the total revenue recognition that you see here is for $251,803. And then moving on to the operating request within the general fund. So the first one is a negative number of $178,642. And that's because we had budgeted for 1 month's worth of expenses for code enforcement in ComDev during the budget process. but actually that process was completed, before, so we didn't really need to spend that 1 month worth of expenses. So those are the savings that we have. And then ComDev is also requesting $12,000 for training for boards and commission members, and they're requesting it at this time because they will soon be starting the training, so they need that money, that funding. And then they're also requesting $2,000 for travel for the code enforcement officials. During the budget process, when the transition was made, this number was not included in the request, so that's why that's being asked for right now. And then we have the $17,300 for the parking lot expenses. So what we are doing here is we are consolidating all of the parking lot expenses within the downtown area. So this is the leases and then also the cleanup expenses for all of the parking lot expenses. Yes, sir.
So yeah, when I was looking through that, what wasn't clear to me was, so I understood you're consolidating it all instead of having it separate departments. But what wasn't clear to me is what that $17,300 represented.
So yes, I can provide the details on that. So the $17,300 includes, so we have some expenses that are budgeted within the solid waste fund. So what we are doing right now is we are consolidating everything in the general fund. So we'll have it all in one place within the general fund. So there are some cleanup expenses right now for the Hagen parking lot. And I think it's not the United Methodist, but also the cleanup for after the Alive in Roswell event. And there was one more, I'm forgetting that. So it includes those expenses and then also an additional $10,000 in contingency for any additional expenses that may come up during the year. So that's what that is. So based on that, so we have a savings of $147,342 based on the operating request that we have there. So we'll move on to the general fund capital request, and we'll start with the electric vehicle charging station replacement, which is for $40,000. So we have a total of 4 charging stations in the city of Roswell that were installed by General Electric. And those stations have been maintained by ChargePoint, but ChargePoint will no longer be doing that because GE is no longer manufacturing, is no longer in the business of manufacturing those charging stations. So we'll have to install new charging stations, and this is the request, the $40,000 for those 4 stations. And then we have another request from the administration department, and this is for the LED lighting within City Hall. So this was brought to Mayor and Council during the budget process, but at that time it was not granted, and y'all had asked to bring this back at mid-year, so that's why the departments brought this back at mid-year. And the cost for that is $120,000. And then we have a few requests from the Recreation and Parks Department. The first one is the Physical Activity Center dance floor replacement for $33,000. So the dance floor at the PAC is right now in very bad shape, and there are some broken floors, and it could be hazardous to the participants. So that's why they are asking for it at this time. And I forgot to mention earlier on that for each of these requests that we've received from the departments, they have been aligned with the critical success factors that were developed by Mayor and Council earlier on. And also you will notice in your packets that there is a reason that's been provided by the departments for why they're asking for this funding at mid-year and why not during the budget process. Then the next request that we have is the playground replacement at Roswell Area Park for $100,000. So typically the department has always asked for $200,000 during the budget process, and they had asked for $200,000 during this past budget process, but they were only approved at $100,000. This is the remaining $100,000 that was not approved that they're asking for now at mid-year. And then we have $60,000 being requested for the Roswell Area Park pool infrastructure repairs. So there's been some tremendous amount of water loss at the pool here at the Roswell Area Park, and it needs to be fixed. So they're looking into it, and the cost of that is estimated to be $60,000. And then Rec and Parks is also requesting $15,000 for the Arts Center West septic field line replacement. So this again, they've been having several issues with roots getting into the system, and the pipes have been damaged. So they need the $15,000 to fix that. And then the department is also requesting $90,000 for the Big Creek Greenway boardwalk repair. So this was affected by a flooding in 2009, and it was temporarily fixed at that time, but then it has continued to deteriorate. The total cost of fixing that entire boardwalk is about $500,000, but they need to fix a certain portion of it now immediately, so the cost of that is going to be the $90,000. The next capital request that we have is the landscape improvement plan at the Oxbow Road, Roswell Area Park, City Hall, and Groveway. That's $105,000, and these are all small projects at different locations, and the department is, and these are all going on right now, and they need to be completed, so the department is requesting the $105,000 to complete these projects in all these locations. And then we have the marketing plan for the River Parks Master Plan. The department is requesting $68,000 for that. And this is part of the River Parks Master Plan. I think there was about $282,000 that was approved during the FY20 budget process, and this is for the marketing plan, which they, I think, estimate to start sometime in the spring, and that's $68,000. And then the department is also requesting $75,000 for the Old Mill Trail wall repair. There was $180,000 that was approved as part of the FY19 end of year budget amendment, but then the cost estimates came higher than what they had anticipated, so they are requesting for a transfer of $75,000 from the trail projects. So we currently have about $145,000 in there that is already approved. So they're just asking for permission to transfer those funds from there into that project. And then we have the $126,230 being requested by the fire department for the rapstick repair. And this amount, the $126,230, is over and above what the insurance company is going to reimburse us for the repairs. We also have a few requests from the transportation department. The first one is $50,000 for the connected vehicle smart signals. So this is a project, an initiative by GDOT, and the transportation department, RDOT, will be working in collaboration with GDOT and the ARC. And ARC is funding 80% of this particular project, and the city will put in 20% of the cost of the project. And there are a total of 100 signals, traffic signals, that we have here in the city of Roswell. This is going to be, I think, about, is it 25, 35 that have already been done. And so we have 65 traffic signals that will be part of this program. And out of that, 25 will be done this year, in this fiscal year, and the $50,000 that's being requested is for those 25 signals. And the remaining 35 will be done as phase 2 in the next fiscal year. And then the department is also requesting $26,500 for the asphalt planer equipment. This is an addition, or this is an attachment actually to the existing Bobcat that they have. And the existing equipment that they have is about more than, it's really old. I think it's more than 15 years old, and it cannot be repaired anymore. So hence the department is requesting for that attachment that goes to the Bobcat. And then we have $50,000 to appropriate funds for the Rucker Road T-Splosh project. So this is part of the IGA with the city of Alpharetta for Rucker Road, and there were some funds that we have received earlier on, and those, as part of that budget amendment, we had recognized the revenue, but we had failed to appropriate the funds, the expenses. So this is just the appropriation of those funds that we had received at that time. So that's the $50,000. Yes, sir, that's, I failed to mention, so that number that you have in your packets, 131,500 is not the correct number. The 50,000 that you see on the slide here is the new updated number. So the total amount of the capital request in the general fund is $883,730. This slide here is a summary of all of the general fund, what the general fund looks like based on these mid-year requests that we have received from the departments. So the revenue adjustments were $251,803. The general fund operating expenditure adjustments were a negative $147,342. So that leaves us with $399,145 in the general fund operating. And then we estimate our FY 2020 available fund balance over the reserve by policy to be $5 million. This is just an estimate right now. The auditors are still working on the numbers, so it could be different from that. And the one-time capital requests that we have are, the one-time capital requests for mid-year we have are $883 and $730. So that leaves us with a remaining fund balance of a little over $4 million. So that was the general fund. We'll move on to the water fund now. And water fund has one mid-year request. And this is, they are asking for $83,903 for the replacement of the water service vehicle. So as part of the FY 2020 budget process, they had received $55,000 for the replacement of an F550 service truck. But during the year right now, they found out that that truck will be too small for them to carry the equipment that they need to carry to the various locations. They need a much bigger equipment, and that bigger equipment is going to cost much more. So this is the $83,903 additional that they would need to buy that big piece of equipment to carry all the other equipment. Right now what they have to do is they have to carry it in several, as attachments with several vehicles, so it would be just one vehicle that would take all the equipment if they buy this. So the estimated fund balance for the water fund right now is at $500,000. With that mid-year request, that would bring the fund balance down to $416,097. And then in the stormwater fund, they have one request, and that is to purchase a trench compactor equipment, which is going to cost $31,000. And the $46,600 that you see is to recognize the revenue. So they bought an excavator that was budgeted in the FY 2020 budget for a certain amount. But the compactor actually came in at a lower cost because they traded in the old one, and as part of the trade-in, they received $46,600. So the department wants to be able to use that money, those savings, towards buying this trench compactor, because right now they have to rent the trench compactor and they have to wait. So buying the piece of equipment will help the department, in terms of saving time and money both. They have a current fund balance of $300,000. So with the revenue recognition of the trade-in value, it would be $346,600. And with the $31,000 for the equipment, that would bring the fund balance down to $315,600. And then the Recreation Participation Fund, they are requesting to buy a software, a program management software that's going to cost $30,000. So this program management software will help the department. It will, with their administrative processes. Currently, what's happening is, the residents who register for the various programs with the city of Roswell have to, sign waivers and provide medical forms and other kinds of information, which is being done on paper. So this particular software will, help put it all into a system. They can do it online where there'll be no paper involved. So that's the cost of that particular software. There's currently $500,000 in the fund. And with that request, it would bring the fund balance down to $470,000. The Fleet Services Fund, you have seen this in the past as well, so it's come back again. So this is just again an accounting adjustment. There is no change. It will not affect the fund balance. It is just an accounting adjustment based on what the auditors have told us we need to do. So that is the a little over 1.1 million that you see. And you see that same adjustment again here in capital projects fund. So what we are doing is we are basically moving the budget of the fleet services fund into the capital projects based on what the auditors have told us. And then we have the shared stormwater agreement revenue, 54,000. And this is for the library, I believe. The Fulton County for the library on Norcross Street. So this will recognize the revenue and then appropriate the funding within the stormwater best management practices. The total amount is $54,000. And you see the expense as well for both the fleet fund and for that stormwater agreement down there. So the net effect is 0 on the fund balance, on the capital projects fund balance. And then finally, we have the risk fund. So this again, we need to correct the risk fund revenues. So what happened here was there was an error that was made during the budget process. And so this request is just to correct the amount by reducing the revenue. So we had budgeted at the high number. We just have to bring that down right now. And that's by the $172,993. That is all I have. If you'll have any questions, we'd be happy to answer. We also have the department heads here available, just in case I'm not able to answer any of the questions.
Floor's open.
So, first of all, thank you for this presentation. I think you did a great job of making it very clear on all the numbers and the details, and also want to give credit to community development. So as liaison, I've worked very close with them, and they worked very hard to find really a large amount of cost savings, which I think is definitely deserves being recognized. So thank you. With that, concern I have is when we do the budget process, we look at a lot more, and we see a lot of aspects that are unfunded. Whereas with this process, you're just bringing us to things that you recommend be funded and not other aspects in there. There were a lot of things here I strongly support, and at the same time, there were some expenses here that I did not support. And so for that reason, at this moment, I'm not able to support this full mid-year amendment.
So if we approve this, then we have time to get even more information or decide on what from here will be supported and won't be supported, right?
Correct.
So it's just moving forward for mayor and council, and then we have the final discussion there with more information that we will all, I'm sure, will request from now until then. Motion to approve.
Yeah, with that being said, between now and council, we can ask whatever questions, remove whatever, change whatever, council, when we approve. Okay, second.
So motion approved by Councilman Zapata, seconded by Councilman Judy.
So a question I'd have is it one thing that I'd like to see before that council meeting is if we could see a list of anything that was unfunded, either from this mid-year process or unfunded from the last budget. Is that a reasonable request?
Yeah, sure.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you, it's unanimous. And I'm actually going to recommend we postpone item number 6, consideration to award contract to VHB to evaluate the structure of Doc's Cafe and 3 city-owned sites, if the council will entertain that motion.
I do.
Yes.
Can someone make that motion?
Second.
Councilman Palermo, the motion to defer, second by Councilmember Judy. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye or raise your hands. Thank you. We're adjourned.